T-Mobile Arena, Las Vegas Strip, that's the site. Diaz McGregor 2, that's the fight. The main event for UFC 202. I'm Scott Spreitzer with Matthew Holt. He's Vice President of CG Technology Business Development. Matt, it's good to have you here. We're going to talk about this main event on this particular video and the much-awaited rematch. Not that it's been a real long time, but that we thought we were going to get it for 200 and we ended up getting in 202. But I think it's going to be worth the wait. One of the things I wanted to ask you about, you being behind the counter, is the line difference from when these two met in 196 compared to now. When they met at UFC 196, just 5 months ago, we saw a line that ended up closing around minus 460, McGregor the favorite. Then he goes out and he loses with that rear naked choke to Nate Diaz and gets upset. But the big difference between the line then of minus 460 and where it sits midweek, the week of the fight, where he's about minus $1.25. Your take on the big difference from fight one to fight two?
Well, I think, look, we all know in sports betting that, people always tend to remember what they saw last. And in this particular circumstance, what they saw last is the invincibility of Conor McGregor be broken by Nate Diaz. But there's a lot of interesting circumstances around that fight. Everyone talks about the fact that Nate Diaz took the fight on 10 days' notice, but so didn't Conor McGregor. Mm-hmm. And basically, they didn't train for each other. They signed, the day he signed, they started a whirlwind media tour, and then they went and did the fight. And I think when you look at that fight, and a lot of people have said to me, what happened in the first fight? Did us as sportsbook operators and odds makers misprice it so severely, or kind of what happened there? And I said, look, Nate Diaz was 2-3 his last 5 fights heading into that fight, and very easily could have been 1-4. A lot of people thought he lost his last fight to Michael Johnson. So he very easily could have been 1-4, last 5 fights heading into that fight. And there was a real path to victory on how to beat Nate Diaz. Use your kicks, use your range, outwork him over 3 or 5 rounds, in this case 5 rounds, because he's not that fast and he's not that dynamic. But what he's always been is durable. And what Conor McGregor did, obviously, was, just Conor McGregor and all his bravado, and came out there and just started firing guns right away. Landed a lot of clean shots on Nate Diaz round 1. Had him bruised and bloody and looked like he was well on his way to winning, and the gas tank ran out. The gas tank ran out in round 2. Nate Diaz started landing punches. Conor McGregor goes for the takedown, and the rest is history.
It was almost a desperation takedown.
Yes.
And because he was running out of gas, he knew it. He felt it. He didn't knock him out. And I think one of the reasons he didn't knock him out, and a lot of us thought that Diaz had this as far as an advantage, not that everybody ran out and bet the underdog in that fight, but a lot of people saw that, going from 145 to 170, McGregor's usually fighting at 145 or was expecting to, and all of a sudden he's fighting at 170, and we thought, boy, I don't know if his strength or his power is going to make as much of a difference to a guy who's fighting at 170 compared to if he was 25 pounds lighter. You hit a point on the head that nobody talks about. They all say, Diaz, what a great fight for a guy who just took this on 10 or 11 days notice. You made a great point. Well, so did McGregor, because McGregor was expected to fight, Dos Anjos. That's who he's supposed to fight. He pulls out of the fight and he ends up fighting Nate Diaz, and he has to change his game plan a little bit. Conor spoke recently. He said being more confident this time around when the fight goes to the ground. And you mentioned the first round he was fighting well on his feet. He didn't fight so well on his feet in the second round. Do you attribute that completely to stamina and just running out of it?
I do think a lot of it is attributed to the gas tank. And one of the biggest misconceptions in this fight is everybody talks about the advantages Nate Diaz has on the ground with his amazing jiu-jitsu game. In 20 UFC fights for Nate Diaz, he has exactly 16 takedowns. So this is a guy who doesn't take a lot of people down. A lot of his work gets done on the ground when people take him down. I think Conor, who doesn't normally game plan, admittedly, says he doesn't game plan for his opponents. They actually have game planned for Nate Diaz this time, trained specifically on how to beat Nate Diaz this time. I think they're going to come out, they're going to keep the fight on the feet. Nate Diaz, who doesn't have great wrestling or takedowns on his own, probably won't look for the takedown, as he didn't in the first fight either. And I think Conor McGregor will save the gas tank, use that range, land shots clean like he did in the first round of the first fight, and probably win a 5-round decision. And let's face it, say that the minus 400 was the wrong price on the first fight because the weight difference and the size difference is too much. Even if you say, well, let's cut that in half and make it minus 220, there is still a huge value on laying minus 120 or minus 130 here with Conor McGregor.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think Conor McGregor comes back and gains a measure of revenge in this fight. Totally different approach this time than he did over those 10 days on short notice against Nate Diaz last time. I also heard Diaz, McGregor was saying the other day, he's upwards of 190 to 200 just last week, so he's a little bit bigger than he was the first time around. He's going to go with Conor McGregor, so am I. Lay about $1.25 midweek, fight week. Don't forget, you can get $10 off any Wager Talk package from any handicapper this week, and all you got to do is use the coupon code UFC10. He's Matt, I'm Scott. We've got more UFC coming up on Wager Talk TV.